welcome back to another episode of
Whole
Whole
and
and
Hard
Hard
Truths.
Truths, where we get the raw experience from your very own, your soldiers. And we got another special guest, Staff Sergeant John, in the building, y'all.
Hey.
So, Staff Sergeant John, tell us about yourself. Tell us, let the people know who you are.
So I am Staff Sergeant John, Tara, two first names. And much like you, actually, Rocky, I've been in the military for about 14 years now. So
Okay.
I think that we started right around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I started originally with the Marines, and I was with the reserves out in Pittsburgh for a while. Started supply there, then switched to military police, and got out for a little bit. Then my little brother, who's 8 years younger than me, joined the Guard, and he's like, "You should do this with me." And I said, "Sure, little bro."
Okay.
And here we are. And so
Okay.
I joined with our unit now, and I'm a truck driver for the moment. And all the while getting my education and things like that. And I finally finished that. So after about 13 years of education, so done with that.
What's your you say you got education, so what is it in?
So I got my bachelor's in social work, and then went on for my master's program. And then after that, took an exam through the state for a license in social work. And then following that, several thousand hours of clinical work, and then another state exam. So I'm finally fully licensed, and no more exams for the time being, and no more schooling. So I'm a licensed clinical social work now.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
So I'm thankful that the Guard has an opportunity then to direct commission, and so that will be hopefully my next MOS as a social worker supporting the Guard then, and transitioning out of Motor T. So
congratulations.
So your third MOS.
Fourth. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I know. All of them sort of unplanned. It just kind of, the opportunities just happened to me, and I'm really thankful for that.
So I just got one question before we get into the topic today. So what made you go? First of all, what made you go Marines? And
That's our first step.
wow, what got you there?
Yeah. I had a cousin who joined, and he told me, if you want to earn things and not be given them, to join the Marines, which of course he's a Marine, and there is a lot of pride in that. So yeah, I joined the Marines first, and I will say I loved my time with them. A lot of really great experiences, really tough experiences, but I think that there's better learning in the National Guard, honestly. Being state and federal funded, there's so many opportunities to learn, so many different trainings that I can be sent to, just because of the funding differences and the programs that are available. The Marines, they don't have their own like medical staff or anything like that. The Navy supports all of that. So opportunities are just a little bit more limited. So super thankful I started there, but also grateful to be here.
That's dope.
All
That's
right.
dope. That's dope.
So today's topic is mental health.
Okay.
So with that being said, what does mental health mean to you?
I think that I really look at it as like wellness overall. There's a lot that goes into it. I think your nutrition matters, your physical fitness matters, your social connections really matter. There's a lot that like really goes into mental health. It's more than just mental. I think it really takes a lot of good structure to be well.
So now my next thing is, so the military preaches about mental health, and well, not mental health, but what is it? What is it? I'm missing the acronym that they usually use for what when we get those classes, and they be like, oh well, it's usually just somebody, and they come talk to you, right? And they say, well, if you feel like you're going through something, talk to somebody. If you feel like this, talk to somebody. And like what my take about how they preach mental health is, I feel like it's very limited. I feel like that we deserve more resources as far as like the help that we get, and not just a number. How you feel about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that overall, the military really operates in a reactive way and less proactive way. They're saying, if you have a problem, then call these numbers, versus preventing the problems to begin with. And I think that there really needs to be a better focus on the prevention part of it. And so part of that is also like establishing really good connections on the front end versus on the back end, when we're already going through something, to expect somebody to make that really difficult phone call when they already have all these other stressors, that's a big expectation sometimes.
Right.
We're asking them to contact family readiness. We're asking them to contact a social worker. We're asking them to contact a therapist. We're asking them to contact their chain of command. And that's a lot for one person to take on whenever they're already managing all of these other things.
Right.
So, so I think like establishing those connections on the front end can really be helpful.
So, what's some resources that you would like to tell everyone that they can reach out to or connect to?
Yeah, I think establishing just one point of contact is really important.
Okay.
So my background is in social work, so I'm a little biased with that.
Okay.
But there are social workers available. So just having that one person that somebody can call, and then that social worker can make all of the other contacts. They can do an assessment to figure out where are all of your needs and let me connect you with all of these things, versus expecting the person in crisis to make all those calls themselves.
Just saying that, like personally having an individual that I know, like in my civilian job, they were prior service and they were going through a crisis, and it was just like a weird. This is ramble story, right? It was like a weird situation where we had to like remove him out the building, right? And didn't know what his situation was, didn't know anything until actually talking to him, and then I heard from his manager that he was a service member, and then just talking to him, he was like, I got a lot going on. His wife passed away in his home, nobody knew, and it was just he was going through it in his own way, like he was sleeping inside the building, and it was very traumatic to like just sit there and try to. One, I gotta do my job. My job was they told me he gotta go, right? But then I had that moment of like it was weakness where I'm like I'm looking at him, and unfortunately, like I could not help it, bro. That I had to really like sit there and think like, damn, he's going through something, and nobody is taking the time out to actually help this man. And it's crazy because his manager was prior service also. He was in the Navy, and he's explaining the same thing. We both sitting there with him, and he's like, "Oh, here go a number for you." That's all that you can give is a number. Like, where is the actual like? Where's the help?
There's no connection in that. There's no connection in that. It's just let me hand you off to this other person. If you call or not, I'll never know because I don't ask. And yeah, there's no connection in that. And you recognize somebody as a human being versus just like trying to do your job. Like you saw the humanity in them and saw that they needed help.
And what I can say is,
really
like, I wound up calling the VA and getting them into the crisis hotline, which is like I feel like it's a great service. But at the end of the day, like you said, when somebody is going through something and they're at that point, at that breaking point where who's picking up the phone? Nobody's picking up the phone to be like, let me call and ask for help. Not when it's immediate.
Right.
And I feel like that it definitely needs to be more. He didn't want to pick up the phone. I picked up the phone for him. I called off my phone. He didn't even have a phone to call off of. And I'm talking about a 70-year-old man who is by himself now. All he knew was his wife.
Wow, yeah.
And she passed away. He didn't even know about the VA hotline. He didn't know that because he was a retired vet that he had the benefit to call and have somebody help him. Unfortunately for me going out and above my job, like I got to sit down with this man and we talked. And I talked to him at McDonald's. Unfortunately, I did my job. I did kick him out. Sorry to say it, but I got to sit down and I talked to him, and he did get the help. Who knows what could have happened within that time period of me kicking him out the building and him going somewhere else and just saying, you know what, this is it. Yeah. I'm dealing with too much right now. So I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I almost got emotional. Listen, losing your significant other is big. Like, and if you don't have the help, like you said, what could have happened? Like,
yeah, and at 70 years old, there's a very natural stage of life where sometimes people really do fall into despair. That's it is literally a stage of life in psychology is despair for people of that age sometimes. And so recognizing like that he is an aging person, he lost his spouse, he had all these other things going on. Those are really big life changes.
Right.
Yeah. And I will say, like, not everything that the military is doing is bad. They're trying to make really good improvements for our mental health.
Right.
And so I imagine his experience as a 70-year-old person back whenever he was in the military was very different than ours. So I'm grateful for some of the changes that we have made, but I still think there's room for improvement. I think that chaplains are an amazing resource for people.
Okay.
Amazing. And the part of the connection that happens whenever they come out and they visit us in the field or they're visiting us on the range or things like that, that connection is really great. And if you guys remember, whenever we deployed, having the chaplain come in and teach certain classes, those classes were really informative. Where I think that's lacking is there's a significant amount of people who are not faith-based. And so to have somebody who is of a faith of any kind that somebody doesn't relate to, I don't think that should be the only resource. I think it can be a resource, but not the resource. So imagine what it could be like to have somebody who is actually embedded, somebody who, much like the chaplain, having a social worker or some other form of mental health professional, be making those connections throughout drill weekends with people. That would look so different, much like your readiness NCOs, how important they are to the unit. And now we have our readiness NCOs who meet so many different jobs. Like they have to be the sharp rep, the assist, like they do so many other things. To have a mental health professional take on some of that role so it's not all on just the readiness, I think would be really important.
With that being said, I think it would be really important that if we had one in each platoon, you know, because people go through things just, you know, on weekends. And it's just a short amount of time we're just there, but someone can just talk to or like, you know, express how they feel, you know?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Like thinking again of the chaplain, they tend to get calls when somebody is in crisis.
Right.
And then they're like, tell me all of your deep, dark secrets and everything that you're ashamed about and everything that you're going through right now, even though I just met you for the first time. Yeah. And that is so, like, I can't imagine being that person and like spilling all that to somebody that I'm just meeting for the first time. So if they're embedded and behavioral health specialists exist and having them be there with people would be really helpful.
Why do you feel like a mental health illness is looked upon as being weak or in like a negative light? Why do people look at
especially in the service?
Fun fact, about 1 in 4 people in the military do show signs of anxiety, depression, or PTSD. So it is kind of crazy that there is such a stigma about it, knowing that 25% of our service members are suffering for some type of mental health condition. I think part of it is because it wasn't talked about before. I think having people talk about it could be helpful. Having people share their experiences. I know a lot of people learn by hearing experiences. They don't necessarily learn off the PowerPoints. They learn about somebody going through the process. But there's a lot of secrecy in success. So we hear about times when somebody messed up and when things didn't go well for them, but we don't really hear a lot about when somebody was successful moving through that process, when somebody was successful with drug and alcohol treatment, when somebody was successful with counseling. We don't really hear a lot about that. Yeah, but we should hear more about that. We should hear more about how the system isn't failing us, and the good things about it too.
So with this topic and you being a leader, right? What do you feel like that you implemented, because this is a topic that you know you are deeply invested in? So what do you feel like you do as a leader, I know, along with your soldiers or just, you know, throughout your ranks, to allow your soldiers to be able to, you know, at least know that they got somebody to lean on?
One of the first things that I like to do whenever I get a new soldier is have them take the Myers-Briggs personality test. I don't know if either of you have ever taken that before. It's great. It's really great. Part of that is so I can establish their baseline. Like I can see what their baseline actually is. If they are more of an introverted person and they're isolating from people, it doesn't necessarily raise a red flag to me if I know that about them up front. I want to know how they usually interact. If they're really extroverted and then they start to isolate, then maybe that raises a little bit more of a flag. And just really getting to know about their personal life and letting them know that, like, I care. And I keep a book and I write things about them so that next time I see them, I'll be like, oh, hey, how's your wife who is pregnant now? Like, how's she doing with her pregnancy? How's your dad who you said is aging and having some struggles? How are things going there? So asking them about their personal lives whenever there's not a crisis, so that whenever there is one, they feel more comfortable talking about it.
So it's not just like the first time that y'all having this break the ice moment.
Like a relationship.
Or they immediately test positive for some type of substance. That's not the first conversation I have with them. We've had many building up to that. So yeah, really establishing those connections immediately.
That's great. That's good.
I was going to say, like, any signs or symptoms that you recognize and a person that you were like, you know what, I can see where this is going, or they may already have reached that?
I used to look for signs like that. I used to look for people who are isolating or are maybe like appear agitated or something like that. But I really have taken on the perspective of a lot of people in the military do come from trauma of some kind. It started in childhood. And so now I just look at every person and see them through a lens as if they did experience the trauma.
Right.
And then I treat everybody with kindness just as I would if I knew for sure. So yeah, I used to kind of look for that and maybe treat people a little bit differently depending on what I assume about them. But now I just operate under the assumption that they should be met with kindness and with empathy, because chances are if they join the military, they're probably escaping something.
Not gonna lie, I call this place, this is like the abusive relationship you can't get out of. That, like, even with you just signed a year, right? You know how you talk about so much how, yo, I can't wait to get out of this place, right? Because it causes you so much stress and it causes so much, whether we like to say it or not, this is a trauma in itself. Every time that you appear in your uniform and you come here and you deal with all the things that we got to deal with, right? That I just like, this is the most abusive relationship that I ever been in my life, right? And it's like, damn, why do I continue to be here? And it's because of the soldiers that, you know, like you said, most of us are coming here to escape something. We join this place for something. And when you become a leader, as we all are, you know, we put on all those different hats. And with those hats come with them problems. And with them problems, we come with solutions. So, I mean, that's, in a sense, I feel like that's the only reason that most of us stick around, to be the problem solver, whether it's, you know, to help that one soldier that might be dealing with something on a personal side or dealing with something here. We get into these positions to be able to handle that. And we take on a lot. And nobody never, ever, ever will understand unless you're in this position, that we take on a lot as NCOs, as officers, as leaders in general. We take on a lot. And we don't get to sit down and talk to anybody. We don't get to sit down and be like, hey, can I talk to a therapist? Like, I had a kid who got in a car accident, who mother passed away. I had a soldier who committed suicide. I had a soldier who died in a, like, we don't get a chance to be able to express that, because when we do, it's frowned upon. So where are those people that's so much say, hey, well, you need to talk to somebody, you need to talk to somebody. Well, where is it?
Yeah.
Where is, while I'm here in this place, I don't see nobody coming to us and saying, well, damn, Staff Sergeant, I know you had 16 people and all 16 of the people got 16 different problems. And with them 16 different problems, it's 42 other problems. And you that person that's taking on all that.
And we're always giving solutions, because I'm always giving solutions.
Yeah.
Where's the help for us?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely heavy. That secondary stress of trying to carry other people's problems.
Weight.
Yeah, it is really heavy. And I think that part of that is that we only really get asked those questions during our PHAs once a year. Like, hey, have you thought about suicide? Well, yeah, but it's been 6 months now, and I'm not in that space anymore.
And not to cut you off, but even then, talking about that with the PHAs, right? Like, you get that one moment to sit and talk to somebody, and then you're not sure where this is going to go, right? So if I sit down and I talk to the provider, right, and they say, well, I see that you marked on your paperwork that you was a little depressed. Well, what's going on? Now, if I say to you, well, ma'am, I got 5 people that have stressed me out for the last 6 months. What do you? And then now you're flagged. Now you gotta be on a profile. Now you got all these different people asking you about, well, why is this? Why is that? And you unsure. Maybe I do want to be here, but I don't know where that might lead to.
Right.
I might say that, well, 2 months ago I was depressed. 2 months ago I may have felt down, but I put this on paperwork, and now my career might be over with. Why is that the case?
Yeah. And I think part of that is because of like previous policies and the way that we really handled mental health. It did used to be like, oh, if you have a diagnosis of any kind, you're being separated.
Right.
I think that there have been some big changes since then, but it really takes a calm person to be able to hear all of that and not go from 0 to 100 right away. oh, you said you're thinking about suicide, let's call crisis. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to call crisis.
Right.
Having that conversation first in a very calm way and matching energy, or like even going below somebody else's energy to bring them back down, would be a good way to handle it.
Right.
But it takes a professional person to be able to do that.
Right.
So expecting your buddy who you're opening up to not be stressed for you or worried about you is a big expectation. If they're hearing you say that you're thinking about suicide, all they know is calling crisis. So that's why we need like broader resources and people to be able to talk through that, so they know that maybe calling crisis isn't a good fit. Maybe we can talk about it and figure out what's going on. And maybe it's okay if you've considered it 6 months ago, and you're in a safer space now. You've created your own safety plan. You have people surrounding you. You have coping skills now. So rather than just taking it at face value, I've thought about suicide, let's call crisis.
Right.
But yeah, that takes some education, and it takes some self-regulation to be able to hear stories like that and not react in a really big way. And sometimes I've met people who don't react in a good way, and they actually send somebody into a crisis then because they react poorly. So yeah, it's very complex. Yeah,
so I want to ask you, as far as being a leader, right? How do you feel like that there should be some formal training for us in the ranks, right, to be able to handle things like this because again, we are thrown in these positions. We go to BLC, basic leadership course. We go to ALC, which is advanced leadership course. We go to SLC, senior leadership course. We go to these courses, and they don't mention anything that have to do with the mental health portion of being a leader, right? So do you believe that at some point when you are in the rank of NCO or you are an officer, that you should take, or there should be something offered to you, especially if you have, people that's under you, to be able to, if they are in this situation, rather than just, I'm throwing these numbers at you,
right,
call a hotline or call a chaplain. Do you think there should be some formal training involved with once you take that next step as a leader to be able to handle certain of these situations?
Absolutely. And one of the things is master resilience training, and that is more on the prevention side of it. And I really love that program.
They just took it away.
I know. Well, yes, that's a whole other thing. So yes, we can get into that. Yes. So with MRT, it is one of the only courses that was open to any NCO, E5 and above. Well, they like E6 and above, but with a waiver, you can be an E5. You don't have to be a chaplain. It doesn't matter what your MOS is. None of it matters. And so it was like the only course that you can really get into that is direct from leader to soldier.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what your qualifications are. And there's so much that I think that we could have done better with that program. Okay. It really takes a commander who wants to make space for that program. That's really important. But they were making a lot of changes before the ALR Act was issued about discontinuing the program. So I guess for the viewers, MRT is Master Resilience Training, and there are different levels to it. So level 1 is so that it was all train the trainer. You go to the program, and it is 2 weeks long, so 10 days of training. And they teach you about different competencies, and each competency has skills under it. So there are 14 skills, and they help with self-regulation, self-awareness, optimism. Gosh, I feel like I'm being a tester now. So let me see if I can name all 6.
It's okay.
Yeah, see if I can name all 6. Mental agility, connection, and character strengths. Okay. So they are all really great coping skills for us to use and for us to teach other people. And that's part of the prevention effort that I think that the Army was lacking, or the military was lacking, rather than being that response. We need to really be focused on prevention. And unfortunately, some parts of the program really failed if commanders didn't really make space and time for those things. So they were working on, the schoolhouse was working on being able to apply these skills and teach them in like field environments and more interactive ways, so they actually stick with people, and that you can just pull them out anywhere and you don't have to have a PowerPoint. So that was happening. And then the ALR Act was issued to discontinue the program immediately for, I think it's reserve and active duty, and then fiscal year 26 for National Guard.
Yep.
So However, there is a company called KBR who was awarded a $116 million contract to support MRT about 2 weeks before the ALAR Act was issued. So I don't know. What I assume that means is there might just be some changes with how that program is done. Because there is still funding out there that was just granted. So unless they're just eating that $116 million contract, which I hope not, it could happen, but I hope not. I do think that there's going to be some changes. And what I think might happen is every state has an R2 center, so the Ready and Resilient Center. And I think rather than having each unit have an MRT, they're going to have just one MRT in that center who goes around to the units to teach. I don't think that's the best way of utilizing it because it's much like some of the other courses that we get right now. And it's the opposite of embedding a mental health professional. So I don't think that's necessarily what we need. But I do think that we probably were wasting money with how much we were sending people there just for the program not to be utilized properly whenever they were getting back. So I think that somewhere there has to be like meet in the middle sort of situation. Maybe like having an MRT assigned at battalion level versus company level instead of like one for the whole state, which seems pretty broad.
Yeah. Because for the state, that means you have to go around and within your schedule. You have to figure out, and with drill weekend schedules, like that would be very important. Again, we go back to the maybe once you get it once a year, and you're gonna get a PowerPoint to death where it's not sticking, and unfortunately, that's not gonna be good enough. And whether we like to hear it or not, like you said, we got younger soldiers that come in here that got trauma, and they handle it a lot differently than we do. And a lot of them take the easier road out, which is, worst case scenario is, what we like to say is death. They don't want to deal with their problems. They don't want to deal with the handling things. They want to take everything is the easy way out. So I don't know what we can do in the service as a whole to try to combat this, but
I don't think that there's actually that much that has changed with how younger people handle things versus the older generation. I still think like no matter what, death is the last option, but they feel like it's the only option. It's the only thing that's going to solve my problem is dying. My family might be better off. My financial situation might be better off. There is no hope for me except death. And I think that idea has remained consistent across generations, unfortunately. And I don't think they come to that very easily. I think it is a very difficult situation. I think changing the stigma, knowing your people, establishing connection, all of those things are important. Part of the suicide rate that happened with the older generation is they left the military and they didn't really know what to do from there. I think what's useful for us being National Guard members is that we already have a civilian life outside of here. Yes, there's some grief that happens whenever you get out. You don't see a lot of the people again, but we've established our connections before that, so that's been really helpful. And there was also back in older generations, they had like the American Legion and the AMVETS, which still exist today, but I think that the population there is significantly older, and that's really helpful for them. But conversely, we don't really have anything like that. Like the younger people, we don't really go to the American Legion very often. We don't really establish connections with many other vets outside of this. So once we get out, there will probably be a grieving period, but we have better access to still contact those people through social media and phones and things like that that the older generations didn't have. I think the older generations just really relied on those clubs, those veteran clubs. So hopefully we'll be a little bit more resilient. And also we are talking about it more. So that's helpful.
For me, like, everyone struggles with something, right? So with that being said, I rely on like having a good group of friends or, my support team is really strong. My parents, my grandparents, my husband, and I find strengths in them. What are some strengths or things people can do like to cope with their mental illness or mental health?
So that is probably the biggest one is human connection. there's a sociology theory called the third place, and it's something I'm super passionate about. I like, if this is like my drunk talk. If I'm drunk and I start talking about this, like you'll know I'm over my limit because I just love this so much. So the theory is the third place. Our first place is our home, and that's where we're the most comfortable. It's where we don't really bring people in as much. Like we don't really like to host because it comes with stress. Do they like what I'm feeding them? Do they like what I'm giving them to drink? Are they judging me for the cleanliness of my house? All of those things. Do I have enough space for people? So it's really just our comfort space where we don't really like to host very much, and we just like to keep that to us. It's where we spend most of our time. Our second place is our work, and that's where we spend the second most of our time. There's an expectation to be productive, but we do get to socialize a bit there sometimes, depending on what your work is. And so both of those places are very important to us. So thinking at like stay-at-home parents or stay-at-home spouses, they do tend to experience a bit of depression because they only have one place. They don't leave the home for anything unless they like volunteer and stuff, but they don't have that second place. The third place is really strong in other countries. Like your German pubs, that's a third place, your French cafes. And it's really a place where you get to just show up and exist. It's the Central Perk in Friends, if you've watched Friends before, where they show up and their people are there. You don't have to host. You get to see people that you relate to. It doesn't matter what your demographic is. You get where the attorneys play pool with the blue collar workers. None of that matters. And yeah, you just get to see people, but you don't have the pressure of hosting. And if you don't show up for a week or two, they wonder where you are. I think those are very underutilized in our country. Thankfully, the military is one of the best third places we can have because it doesn't matter your socioeconomic background. It doesn't, and none of that matters. But yeah, once you leave here, you really need to have a third place. You need to go to the dog park. You need to go to the public library. You need to belong to a church if that's your thing. Anything that is welcoming, and you get to be with like-minded people and just really kind people who miss you when you're not there. That human connection and having a social group is so important. So that's something to ask your soldiers. Like, what do you do when you're not here? Who do you talk to? Tell me about your group. And they should at least have, I would say, probably like 4 to 5 people, adults that they talk to frequently, several times a month, and not just family. We can't put all of our stress on one person, all of our personal experience on one person. And if it is only our spouse, that's pretty heavy for them to carry. So you should branch out. You should divvy out the load. If your spouse isn't available, who's there for you? So you're not the 70-year-old person who loses their only support. Yeah. That's a prevention strategy. So, yeah.
So, I know that, we wanted to go into also another topic that is pretty much the same thing, where we get, that one time a year we get that sharp class where they talk about the sexual assault prevention portion of the service, and just like everything else, we get PowerPointed to death, or we just get thrown some numbers and not really get that support. If you can touch on that just a little bit.
Yeah. So another area where there's definitely some things that we can improve on, and also we have made some improvements on. So one of the things is about 20% of sexual assaults get reported. The other 80% don't, which is pretty significant in the military. So that's quite a lot of reports that go unreported. And so one of the things that they did recently come out with, just within like the past 5 years, is a Safe to Report Act. Because one of the barriers to reporting is often it involves the person who is victimized maybe engaging in something that they shouldn't have been, that there's a rule about. So whether they were consuming alcohol underage or just on a weekend that they weren't allowed to, they were without a buddy. That's the buddy system is, arguably like one of my least favorite things, because it's saying that you need to be with the same sex person. And if you're not, I think it's actually causing more harm, because again, it's a barrier to report. I chose to trust somebody who's the opposite sex, who is attracted to females or something. And so now I'm sexually assaulted and I'm not going to report that. I think that's like really, I think it's more of a barrier than anything. So yeah, consuming alcohol, being without a buddy, being with somebody who's a different rank, depending on what the rank structure is. And so all of these things, if the person who's victimized engages in those things and they break a rule, they're not going to report that. Why would you? That would be terrifying. Like, I'm going to be in trouble for this, even though I've received punishment enough by being assaulted, and I shouldn't receive any other punishment. I mean, not that sexual assault should be a punishment to breaking the rules, but yeah. So just within the past couple of years, they came out with the Safe to Report Act that allows people to report without, if they were engaging in something that they shouldn't have been, they won't receive consequences for that. However, the way that it's worded is up to the discretion of the commander.
Oh,
so
man.
yes, so that's another hard part. So still, I think it's a step in the right direction, given that a lot of the barriers to reporting is that fear of consequences. I think it just could be done a little bit better. I think if they just change that and make it so that if you are sexually assaulted, that there won't be a consequence for breaking the rules.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be a really big step.
So, sexual harassment and sexual assault. Is there a difference between the two?
There is. So sexual harassment is, it can be verbal or nonverbal. It can also be a little bit physical. So anything without consent, it can be like creepy staring, which we know what a creepy stare looks like. We can definitely usually tell the difference between a normal stare and a creepy stare.
Yep.
There could be like touching of like the arms and things like that. That's just like uncomfortable. It can be directly to you, like verbally, like you look good or something like that, or it could also be like talking about somebody or talking about a group to a different person or a different group. So it could be like making inappropriate comments about women in general, or it could be making an inappropriate comment about one particular person. So yeah, it can be a couple of different things. Where sexual assault, as defined by the military side of it anyways, is really non-consensual touching in any of the bikini area. And the reason that I bring up like the military side of it is because sometimes that differs a little bit with like regular law enforcement, civilian side, where the UCMJ really looks at like if somebody slaps your butt, that's the bikini area. It's sexual assault, where civilian may see that as sexual harassment. So yeah, it kind of varies with what the threshold is, but yeah, the UCMJ specifically, assault is anywhere in the bikini area.
For the listeners, a lot of people don't know what that is.
Yeah. What the?
Can you explain what UCMJ is?
Oh, yeah, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So it's really like our crime code and who determines when something's been violated.
Okay.
So yeah, it really does differ from regular civilian code.
Okay. Question: in your experience, your 14 years, have you ever had to deal with whether having a soldier reach out to JAG or any of the IG or any of the situations like that? And how did you go about the process? Whether it's, we'll just break it down on how you, if you had an experience like that.
Yeah. So the way that sexual assault is handled is through either restricted or unrestricted reporting. And the restricted reporting is really so that people who are victimized have access to things like medical care and counseling. There's no consequences for the assailant in that experience, because it just remains restricted.
Wait, one more time. So, hold on. So you're saying somebody can be sexually assaulted and they go, in the military's eyes, the restricted route, the what is the word I'm looking for? The victim uses the restricted side, and you saying the assailant won't get in trouble?
For the restricted side, they don't even have to share who the assailant was. So it doesn't go through law enforcement. And that's part of the benefit is that harm reduction piece of it.
Right.
If somebody doesn't really want to report, they still can get access to counseling services, medical treatment, things like that. So that's why they have that restricted option. Where unrestricted is really where you get into filing things, and those administrative consequences, sometimes the deduction of rank and things like that, those consequences for the perpetrator at that point. So yeah, that's whenever law enforcement and another improvement that the military made is having an outside team investigate those claims versus before it used to be an inside team. And there was a lot of bias there and lack of confidence in chain of command with dealing with that. So yeah, they now have an outside team that investigates claims of sexual harassment and sexual assault, which is great. I think it's a great improvement. So yeah, and that's really with the unrestricted reporting, and there are consequences that can come out of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are those consequences?
It can be administrative, like the deduction of rank. It can be moving to a different unit. It can be actual, like, oh my gosh, like criminal consequences. So sometimes they do work with civilian law enforcement as well, depending on the threshold of that assault. So yeah, a lot of different things that can happen. They can be discharged from the military depending on the severity.
And does that follow along with their civilian side? So say worst case scenario, someone is sexually assaulted and they go through these channels and then they are found guilty in some sense of form. Is that a part of their record now? Does that follow them? Or is it just strictly, well, you were kicked out for this and now I can go on the civilian side and no one ever knows about it?
Yeah. So it'll, again, depending on the severity and what type of discharge it is, they are required to report it. I do believe it is, now I'm not an expert in this side of it, so I think it is anything other than honorable or worse. So definitely dishonorable discharge, they absolutely have to report that. Yeah, and again, like the criminal side of it, not all things that we do on this side does follow over to the civilian side, and I think that might also be like one of my pet peeves with how we handle sexual harassment and sexual assault. Because sometimes what happens is somebody who perpetrates on somebody ends up moving units, and then it doesn't necessarily follow them. The only access that people can have to it is like an NCOER. They might look on it and say that they didn't follow the SHARP standards or the EO standards or something.
But that's really like,
I really hate
only people that see that is somebody on the what is it?
The rating side of it.
The rating side that will see that. The regular your battle buddies, your soldier, whoever is, within you in the ranks, they would never know. So it could be anybody just walking around and you don't know where they came from. You just know it's a transferred soldier that just came in, and they can be transferred for the worst case scenario. And somebody just was like, well, you know what? It's easier to just transfer them than to just deal with it. That's crazy.
I understand why they do it for the victim, but like if someone sexually assaults someone here and then he goes to a new place and does it there and goes to a new place and does it there, it's just like, what are we going to do to get this person out? Yeah,
and that does kind of depend on the severity as well, because we try to really have faith that our military would follow through with kicking them out if it was pretty significant. And I know part of the reason that they don't share the identity of the perpetrator, unlike civilian side where it's all public knowledge. If you have a criminal record, you can access it through the court if you want to. Anybody can, and it often shows up in the newspaper. You don't get that here. Part of that is because, again, like, it really is also tied to mental health. So the behavioral stuff, like the lack of consent and the perpetrating on somebody, also really ties to mental health. And so there is this fear of labeling somebody as a perpetrator, and therefore they may take their own life or something like that. So that's part of it, but it does potentially put other people at risk.
I feel like that's a little crazy to like victimize the assailant. That's a little, to me, that sounds a little crazy. Like I can go out and do like not just sexual, so I can go out and do a crime, and then it's like when we see people, like say for instance that somebody was out there robbing people, right? And then next thing you know, they robbed the wrong person, and then you have family members like, oh my God, he was such a great person. I feel like that's a little crazy to just be like, well, you done did something wrong, and now I'm trying to help you at the same time protect you. Like that's weird. In my eyes, I think that's weird. Like I feel like it should be a sense where I want to know if Joe Smoke next to me, you a creep, bro. Like I want to know. I got little girls that's coming in here 18, 19 that's very vulnerable. Like I would want to know if this E5, this E6, this E7, and now they walking around with this private who just came in, and you might think that they're, molding them to try to be better, quote unquote. I'm giving them that guidance, which sometimes is said, but at the same time they're prying on them, which, I mean, it happens. I feel like that it should be a system where we get to know who that person to the left and the right of us are, so that we can keep a little bit more of an eye on it. because you don't know what happens once we go to sleep at night, or when people out here, just like now, like we out here in a gap, and all times of night people are up and moving around.
Me personally, I believe in second chances, just not with that. Like, I feel like, no, I'm for real. Like, I do believe in second chances, and I do believe someone can change. But like you said, if someone is coming into the unit for the first time, or as a transfer, I'm just like, okay, if he did this to such and such, we should all know about it. Like you said, to protect our other soldiers or to keep an eye on them. Not so much to put them on blast, but like, you got to know these things, you know?
Yeah. And maybe even just like the base title of it. So much like if you pull somebody's criminal record, you see what's on it, you don't know the whole
details.
Scenario.
Like, no, you don't got to go full in depth, like, oh, you did X, Y, and Z, and this, and H. Now I got the picture in my head, like, oh my God, this guy's a fucking weirdo. But no, you don't got to know all that, but just the general, like, hey, this individual, like, just like when you know somebody pop hot, like, pop hot is, they test hot on urinalysis, right? We know that whether you want to or not. At the same token, when you are here, I feel like that's something that should be shared, if not with everybody, but at least in the, if you call us senior leaders or you call us leaders in some sense, I feel like that should be shared so we can know how we should maneuver, especially with certain individuals.
I think there's definitely value to looking at an individual with the belief that they can improve and they can change. So I think if that is the mindset that the administration is like trying to take, like, I'm not going to blast these people and all their personal details and their military record for everyone, then they should probably offer some way to rehabilitate them. And they don't.
I agree.
Thankfully, people who are victimized, they do have some access to services. Not always great, but there is some access to services. But the perpetrator, who there are several that reoffend, there's no treatment. They don't offer treatment to them. But often, like, they maybe were perpetrated on in the past, or they clearly don't understand consent or boundaries or things like that.
Right.
So if they're like repeat offenders, in order to prevent that from happening, I think they should also be in treatment. They should receive some form of counseling or something like that. It shouldn't be only the person who was victimized that their entire life is altered and now revolves around therapy. It should be the person who perpetrated as well. They should absolutely have access to services. They should be put through a program, much like ADAP, the drug abuse program.
Where they see someone or in our sense of like National Guard, they see somebody not even once a month. Like, I feel like that should be like a therapy type session where they check in with somebody on a weekly basis to, whether it's to discuss, like you said, mental health wise, like, it takes more than one weekend. It takes more than one PowerPoint. It takes more than just one time hearing it to make a change into something. So in the sense of we talking about victims and assailants, I feel like there needs to be more in a sense, because again, we only get it once a year, and we don't spend more than, it may seem like an hour briefing, but it usually just be PowerPoint, somebody coming and speaking and telling us, hey, you're not supposed to do this. If you see something, say something. And then it go in one ear and out the other, and then we're walking back out and we don't hear it again for another year. So it's like, what are we supposed to do with that? How are we supposed to? Now, it hasn't happened to me in my tenure. I haven't, thank God, had to deal with anything of the sense yet, and I hope I never have to. But I know that, we briefly talked about, at some point you did have to write a paper about it and did meet some type of
I guess I didn't totally answer that question. Sorry. So the way that this kind of happened, technically, whenever somebody tells you something in our rule, that is like immediately unrestricted. They already told somebody about it, and so we're supposed to kind of push it up.
Right.
However, as like a human being, I think that's kind of harmful. If that person doesn't want that to be known, then I think that they should be able to share that in confidence, without like the fear of us going and blabbing to everybody if they're not comfortable with that.
Right.
And part of that also comes from working with people who experience like intimate partner violence. If somebody reports intimate partner violence to me, I don't usually say, well, I'm going to call the police on your partner, because they're going to shut down and not tell me anything anymore. So I think that there should be some leeway for that reporting, just to allow people to be able to share things with other people and talk about it because of that stigma and the fear of retaliation and all of those types of things. So what happened, I was a young soldier and with a group of other young women, and they were all talking about this one individual who made them all very uncomfortable, and suddenly they all started sharing stories. And it was all like very uncomfortable things, and it just started small, where like he would say uncomfortable things, or like asking where they lived and things like that, and then it progressed. And one person didn't want to share that information, but suddenly whenever they all knew about it, they're like, oh my gosh, we should say something, because this person is likely going to offend on several different people.
Right.
So so that, like, we did all go and report that, and thankfully it was a period of time when they did have that outside investigation. It was very, very new to that, though. So it was the first experience doing something like that with that outside investigation team.
Wow.
The other part of it is, like, we don't necessarily know what happens from there.
Right.
And the process is so long that this individual, like, continued to keep their rank, continued to stay in the unit, continued to show up on promotion lists and things like that, because the process it takes a very long time to go through. So yeah.
Was that mainly because of the investigative portion, or was that just off your knowledge, or is that just how the process is? It's just lengthening itself.
I think it's honestly the process, because I think the investigation, I want to say, just from my perspective, they finished it within 60 days. They had all the information. Honestly, they probably had all the information they needed within the first week. Like, they got all of the statements and things like that. So I think a lot of it is just like the administrative process that goes up, and then by the time you take somebody's rank and everything, suddenly they're at the time where they could earn it back already. Like, it just is such a long time.
That's crazy.
Another improvement that they did make, though, knowing that there are a lot of people who reoffend, especially if they're not reported, is they have the catch program now, just within the past couple of years, which is where you just go to your SARC, your sexual assault response coordinator. Ooh, that was tough. So yeah, you go to them and you tell them that you want to upload information to the catch program, and they help you. And it is so that you just upload some demographics. If you know the perpetrator's name, you put that in there. You put like the time, the place, all of that, anything that you know about that person.
So is it like a setup type thing?
No,
that
would be cool.
I was about to say,
yes, it's called the catch program. So
I was about to say, because it sounds like it sounds like when you enter in their information, it's like,
watch out for this person.
Gotcha.
Yes.
It's like that. That's what I feel like that it is. That's what popped in my head.
No, what it is then if another person goes and says that I also want to upload the information, they cross-check it.
Okay.
And then that person who is victimized gets a notification if somebody else matched. If somebody else has also been offended on by that similar person. And then they get to choose if they want to do an unrestricted report or not, based on that.
Oh, so it's like building a case.
Yes.
Pretty much.
And it connects two people who are victimized potentially by the same perpetrator.
Okay.
And so much like that experience that I had with all of those women who were experiencing the same thing, that's what made them feel confident to report it.
Okay.
So yeah, so that catch program, I don't know the statistics of how much it's utilized right now, because I think it's not.
I'm gonna be honest, this is the first time me ever hearing about it.
Yeah, so it's been around for, I would say, probably at least 5 years now. In the military. Yep. So yeah, it hasn't. I mean, 5 years in grand scheme isn't a whole lot.
No, right.
But enough that if we're getting annual classes, we should be more aware of those things.
Right.
But I don't know how often we're updating the PowerPoints and things like that.
Yeah.
Or if somebody goes through the SHARP training to be able to teach that, they might have gone through it 16 years ago.
Right.
And
it's new information that's out there, it's not up to date.
Yeah, so they wouldn't know any different.
So is there a place, not a place, but is there a way for, say, an individual comes to you and they say that this happened, and say they don't want to talk to that representative, because every unit is supposed to have a representative, a SARC representative, right? But if they don't want to go to their representative because they don't feel comfortable with their representative, is there a way for them to jump that line of, or chain of command, and then directly go to, I don't know who's next, but how does that work?
Yeah, so there should be a state SARC as well, and a victim advocate. So both of those people should be available. Admittedly, I don't know their information, but yes, there should definitely be like tiers of people. And there's also like the chaplain if you want to do a restricted report, just talking to somebody about it. There's the medical personnel if you want to do a restricted report and just talk to them about what's available to you, those types of things. Those people can access services by self-referral. They can just call them and say, I've been assaulted, I want this service.
Right. So they don't, so like so what you're saying is basically they don't have to say, well, at any given point, I have to talk to, because usually how the chain of command is, if it's a lower enlisted soldier, they got to talk to their team leader, or they can go straight to their squad leader or platoon sergeant. So they technically don't have to use that chain of command in that sense. They can literally just go from, well, this happened.
Right.
I don't feel comfortable talking to this representative inside the unit. I need to talk to this person.
Yeah.
And they can get the help that they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and it's actually probably preferred that they don't communicate with their chain of command, because it could muddle the investigation.
Okay.
And yeah, I know, again, we want to have faith in our chain of command, so I would hope that they would respond appropriately.
Right.
But yeah, that's
the case.
Right.
Yeah, and so especially if somebody wants to file a restricted report and just get access to those services, the more people they tell, the more unrestricted it's getting. So yeah, really keeping it just need to know. And yeah, same with us. If somebody told me something in confidence, I wouldn't want to tell anybody, but I especially wouldn't want to like send it the whole way up my chain of command and hit every person on the way. So so yeah, I think that's a really big violation of their privacy and their confidence in me. So
Okay.
Last thing we wanted to touch on. I know you mentioned, not here, but we talked offline about you going through and writing a paper. Just wanted to share a little bit, if you can share a little bit about the paper that you wrote when you were in, would you say BLC, right?
Yeah.
Basic leadership course. If you want to just elaborate on that for a little bit.
Yeah, so your first episode, you guys were talking a little bit about like the development that we go through as leaders in the different stages. So one of the only times that I really heard about SHARP and sexual assault in general in the military was through BLC, especially coming from the Marine side of it. I mean, overall, things are pretty similar, but they don't really call it SHARP or anything like that.
Okay.
So my first experience really diving into the SHARP program for the Army side of it was through BLC.
Okay.
And the very first essay that we had to write was why we think that sexual harassment and sexual assault continues to increase in the military. So really diving into that program, there was room for improvement. And at that time, the things like the Safe to Report Act, that talks about like the no consequences if you're engaged in something that breaks a rule, and the Catch program, neither of those things were available at that time.
So wait, what time? What period were you at BLC?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's recent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again,
no,
grand scheme.
That's recent for them not to have those type of programs.
Changes.
Yeah, that's crazy. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so what I discovered is a lot of the SHARP program was really focused on like victim behaviors, like how to not make yourself a victim, versus like the perpetrator behaviors and how to not make yourself a perpetrator, which is really like offensive, honestly. And I think that the victim blaming part of it is part of the reason that people don't report. Again, those things like you were doing something wrong, you put yourself in this situation, so of course you were assaulted. And
that's crazy, because I can remember like what they say, don't, if it's a group of guys, don't be around, if it's female, it should be with female, like you were saying earlier. Males shouldn't just be with one female being alone. It should be a male, female, male. And I feel like that's crazy to just be like, to tell somebody who you can be with, where you should be at, and like you're the problem for why this happened. You are the issue. And that, like, to be honest, I don't know who came up with that, but in hindsight, just thinking about you saying to somebody, it's your fault for it happening because you were around, because you were drinking, because you were at a party, because you were somewhere, and it was just you and a group of other people, when we're all supposed to trust each other. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, and being assaulted shouldn't be a punishment for trust. Like we should be able to trust our people. And I think without that rule, like with being able to just say, I'm with this group of people, I'm with these people, it opens up for the person to be a little bit more comfortable about reporting if something happens. And also, like, there are male on male assaults, there are female on female assaults, so it doesn't solve every problem. And yeah, there's also this thing where they're like, oh, well, females just shouldn't be in the military. Which is crazy considering the Marines has the least amount of females, but the highest sexual assault rate. So clearly having fewer females is not a solution. So instead of focusing on like the victim behaviors and like avoiding relationships with the opposite sex, we should really be talking about like how to have appropriate relationships with the opposite sex, how do we have good working relationships? How do we be close with one another? How do we maintain boundaries?
Right.
All of those really like positive things, how to make this good, versus avoiding everything, because clearly the avoidance isn't working.
Right.
We can't just avoid the opposite sex all of the time. So, and I think it creates more barriers to reporting.
Since you say that, I remember, I don't know, well, you wasn't with us in Kuwait, but I don't know, do you remember that time that it was like a message put out where the males, they were saying that there was a male going around, um, it was in Buren, actually, and they were saying that people were getting struck over the head with a frozen water bottle and being sexually assaulted.
Oh my gosh.
It was put out by the base commander, and then they like trickled down. Um, it's weird to say. Like I don't think I ever had to worry about that shit ever in my life until we went over there. And when I got that text message, I was like, bro, like, is this something I'm really gonna have to deal with? Like, bro, I go to the shower and there's 7 other people in here showering at the same time. Like, if I'm walking at nighttime, am I gonna have to worry about being assaulted and like something crazy happening? Because you mentioned like the male on male thing, and we don't think about that.
Right.
The craziest thing is that it was males getting raped. And that message went out, and they didn't say females be careful when walking around. It said males be careful when you're out by yourself, because males are getting knocked over the head and raped when we somewhere and we trying to do our job.
Right.
Like, bro, you took me out of my comfort zone and my home, and you put me 10,000 miles away for me to be extremely uncomfortable. And the one thing I have to worry about is that.
Yeah.
That was the last thing that I thought I would ever have to worry about. You always think about the IEDs and you know, you're gonna, when you're driving in your convoy, that's what you got to watch out for. Which you have to really worry about that, right?
Yeah.
You think that I want to go to the showers and I got to worry about who the hell gonna hit me over the head and something happened to me? Like, that ain't what I signed up for.
Right. The scary thing is, that's actually a rare occurrence versus like the 90-something% of people who are assaulted know their assailant.
That's crazy.
Have trusting relationships. It's almost like easier to think about like a stranger doing it because they don't know me. They're not going to treat me like a human.
Right.
But these people are supposed to treat you like humans. They're supposed to love you, care about you, be there for you. And they're the ones who actually take advantage of the trust. So that is thankfully a rare occurrence that it's a stranger. But yeah, also kind of crazy that usually it's somebody that you know.
I was gonna say, I know someone who was best friends with someone and he hung out with the same group of people that they both trusted, and it happened to that person. Mm-hmm. It's always like within a friend group or someone that you know close.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep. And I cannot say it enough. Trust shouldn't hurt. Love shouldn't hurt. Right. And if somebody takes advantage of you, like it's not a punishment for trusting, and it's not a punishment for love. That doesn't mean that you should never trust anybody again. It doesn't mean you should never love anybody again. Because it's not your fault if that happened.
Well, on a more positive note, we always like to end our segments, right, with positivity and being able to, give light, shine light on one person that, you would like to shout out, whether, whoever it may be. So who would you like to give that time and that shine to?
All right. So I believe he is now Master Sergeant Conley, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So reason being, I was brand new to the unit, and I do have a mental health background, but I was so interested in really getting a seat at the table for like Army mental health, and also Army like sexual assault and harassment, and that response team. So it starts small, like building up to that. There are different levels of education that you can get. And I'm so grateful that whenever I got here, that those doors were opened up for me.
That's what's up.
I said I was interested in this, and I got to go to ASSIST for the suicide intervention. I got to go to ACESI also for suicide intervention. I got to go to a sexual harassment and assault response ambassador course while we were in Kuwait, which was really cool. And that was I was one of the first 100 people that got to do that.
That's what's up.
And I got to go to MRT level 1 and 2. I got to go to DCERT, which is deployment cycle resilience training in Alaska, which was amazing.
That's cool.
And all of that is just because I said I have an interest in this, and I also pushed for it. So some of that was like me requesting every time I would hear about it.
Right.
But I couldn't have done it if he didn't put me in those school seats.
That's what's up.
and didn't hear me when I said I was interested in it, and really showed passion for it. So
that's the one thing I can say about Sergeant Conway. That man, he has done a lot for us in this unit, and definitely gonna be missed. He didn't go anywhere, die, or anything like that, because it sounds
he's
like
still with us,
he's
just
with
not
us.
with us.
He's not with us. He moved on to bigger and better things. Who you got?
Sergeant Bluber for sure.
Good one. Also, MRT, love him.
Yes. He's like the nicest person that you will ever meet. I just want there's a lot of respect for him, for trusting me to do my job, trusting us to do our job. So definitely a shout out to Sergeant Bluber for sure.
Okay. Dang, I took everybody from me. If we're gonna keep it at home, dang, I don't know.
We have the same platoon, sir, and he's great.
I don't know.
Yeah. He is a
if
great
I was
one.
to think of one person right now that I would, you know what I would say? I would say shout out to the leadership from the top down. Just on the strength of over these years that we've been here, good, bad, or indifferent, that at least I can say that we all made it and we all here safely, right? We all got to progress in the ways that we wanted to. Whether it was through the ranks, whether it was, education wise, whether it was like the resources was there, and no matter how we looked at it, we got a chance to get those resources. Whether seeing other people get promoted and following in that, that pathway. And it's always one person somewhere that you can take something from, like Sergeant First Class Brown, and the way that he moved and the way that he took on his soldiers. You talk about Sergeant Paluba and how he moved with his people. I mean, every last one of them you can take something from and add it to your own little toolbox, if that makes sense. So if anything, I'm gonna say just shout out to them. Because everything that y'all give, we take and we make it our own. And this unit in the whole has changed because of what we seen, what we taken, and then molded into our own thing. So
I have one more shout out.
Oh, all right, cool.
One more. My sister, my friend, Sergeant Robinson James.
Okay.
She her birthday was all 2 weeks ago. Plus, she also just got engaged and married all on the same day. So,
oh my God!
Congratulations!
All right. Two things. One, just a little shout out to the hotline 988. If you do call that, you can also press 1 for veterans. So you can work specifically with somebody if you are in a crisis that is experienced with working with veterans. And also, I do not claim to be an expert in anything that we're talking about. I do claim to want to be an expert in it, and so I try my best to do my research, but I definitely encourage everybody to do their own research and offer any corrections because I really want to make sure that there's no misinformation.
Right.
So if I misspoke or if I have the wrong information, I please encourage people to add comments and correct anything that might not be correct.
That's cool. We all about giving out more information. That's the whole point of this, is that people can get more information to help better them, whether it's through mental health awareness or sexual assault. We want everybody to be able to benefit from this, and whether serving or veterans or just civilians, be able to just know that there is an outlet out there for all of us.
Yeah.
Obviously, not going to give out your personal cell phone number, but do you want to share your social media or?
Yeah. So I don't know how many of them there are, but my name is Tara John, and I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm building a TikTok for mental health just so I can put my little ideas in there for quick coping skills and stuff. But yeah, any of those methods are fine. You can find me on there.
Okay. Thank you.